The Tennessee Titans can make the playoffs this year, and I'll tell you exactly what needs to happen for them to get there on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's show, we're going to look at the Tennessee Titans ceiling, and we're going to look at the Tennessee Titans floor in 2024. I'm going to tell you what needs to happen for them to hit both of those points. And at the end of the show, I'll tell you where I ultimately think they land and what goes right and what goes wrong. Before we get into it, do want to thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one. Tomorrow, it's our first crossover Thursday episode of the year. We're going to be talking to Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears to get you guys ready for that matchup. And then Friday, I'll have my game plan preview episode where I go over everything you need to know heading into the Titans Week 1 matchup with the Chicago Bears. Before we dive into today's show, make sure that you throw a thumbs up on the video, throw a tighten up down in the chat. The ceiling for the Tennessee Titans this year. Let me know how many games you think the Titans can win if they hit their ceiling this year. For me, it's 11 wins. I've been back and forth between 10 and 11, but I think the Tennessee Titans ceiling this year is 11 wins. If everything goes correctly for the Titans, that's where I think they will ultimately land. And if they win 11 games, there's a good chance that they could win the division, but it is absolutely locked that they would make the playoffs. If the Titans win 11 games and don't make the playoffs, I mean, I'll just lose my mind. There's no other way around it. But what has to happen for the Titans to win those 11 games? Well, number one, obviously, it starts with William Donovan Levis. They need Will Levis to be successful. They need Will Levis to have his breakout season that we've all been thinking about. For me, they need the arrow pointing up on Will Levis for the Titans to hit their ceiling. And now, I don't think that I'm breaking any news to you guys when I say that, but that is obviously the first step in that process is Will Levis doing what we all hope that he can do. But the next step for me, and it goes back to my episode yesterday, my everydayers will remember I talked about my X factor on offense being J.C. Latham. And that is the next step for me if the Titans want to hit their ceiling. J.C. Latham has to be the best rookie offensive tackle. All right, he's got to be better than Alt. He's got to be better than Fashanu. He's got to be better than Fuaga. The Titans need J.C. Latham to become a dependable left tackle, one of the top half left tackles in the NFL. Imagine if Latham can play on an island. Imagine if Latham is a guy who you just don't worry about on Will Levis's blind side. Then you could add more help to the right side with chips from running backs and tight ends. You could slide the line more towards the right side to help that area, which I still think is going to be a struggle. Even if the Titans hit their ceiling, I think the right side of the offensive line is still going to be something that we look at the end of the year like, yeah, they could get better. But J.C. Latham is just a monster domino in this situation for the Titans. Number three, the Titans wide receivers have to stay healthy. They have older wide receivers. DeAndre Hopkins is already banged up. Tyler Boyd is close to 30. Calvin Ridley is close to 30. DeAndre Hopkins is past 30. If they don't have their trio of wide receivers, it's going to make it tougher on Will Levis. They're not going to get open as fast out wide, which makes it tougher on the offensive line. So they need some health from their older wide receivers. Also, they can't afford to have the slow start that I'm thinking that they might have in the first couple of weeks of the year. If the Titans come out and go 2-1 in their first 3 weeks, then I think they're setting themselves up on a path to win 11 wins. I think they also need to win 4 of their division games. They can't afford to go 500 in their division like I think they ultimately will. They need to find a way to beat 2 or win 2 games against one of their division opponents. That needs to happen if they're going to hit 11 wins, okay? And also, I think Treylon Burks needs to do something. It can't be a disappointing year for Treylon Burks. If the wide receivers stay healthy, but, Calvin Ridley misses 2 weeks. Tyler Boyd misses 3 weeks. DeAndre Hopkins misses a couple of weeks. They need Treylon Burks to look like a first-round wide receiver and fill in for those players when that happens. So Burks has to be maybe not elite or something like that or have some crazy breakout, but Treylon Burks needs to at least turn into a good, reliable player for him. On defense, Jeffrey Simmons needs to go nuts. No doubt about it. I'm talking 12, 13 sacks. The Titans don't have a ton of talent on edge. They don't have a ton of talent in their edge pass rush. Harold Landry is a good player, but outside of that, I'm not high on anybody that the Titans have to contribute this year. I've talked about Arden Key. Jalen Harrell's a 7th-round rookie. I think Jalen Harrell could be a good player, but is he going to be a difference maker in year 1? Probably not. I think those expectations would be too high. So if the Titans are going to win 11 games and the defense is going to be awesome, it starts with Jeffrey Simmons getting 12, 13 sacks on the year and playing all of the games. Also, they need Harold Landry to look like how he looked after the bye last year. I don't think that Harold Landry is ever going to be an elite rusher like a TJ Watt, a Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, a Micah Parsons, guys like that. I don't think he's ever going to reach that level. But if he can be a tier 2 rusher and be as good as a Josh Allen, be as good as a Brian Burns, if he can get to that level, it totally changes the Titans' defense. All right. Also, T'Vondre Sweat has to be as good as everybody is hoping he is because the Titans need to stop the run in their nickel formation, which is 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and 5 DBs. If they could play in that package on defense for the majority of snaps, and T'Vondre Sweat can stop the run against 2 tight end looks because he's immovable, that obviously, and I've said I don't have a lot of faith in the edge rusher opposite of Harold Landry, which means the Titans have to get production from their interior rushers, not just Jeffrey Simmons, but T'Vondre Sweat. Also, if the Titans want to be good against the run, T'Vondre Sweat has to take up blockers and let those linebackers roam free. The secondary obviously has to be locked in. We need L'Jarius Sneed and Cheeto and Roger to play the way they can. We need Amani Hooker to be the ball hawk that he's supposed to be and can be when healthy and in a good defense. So for me, the secondary must be locked in. All right. The Titans linebackers are going to be suspect no matter good or bad how the season goes. That secondary edge rusher spot is going to be suspect no matter how the season goes, good or bad. But if the Titans can get the secondary to play to the level they can and get the interior defensive line to play to the level that we think they can, that is how they win 11 games. That is how they get to the playoffs. That is how they push for a division crown. And also, I think Denard Wilson, with all of that defensive stuff, Denard Wilson needs to live up to the hype that we had for him in the preseason and make this defense a turnover machine. That's what the Titans need. I don't think this Titans defense is going to be a lock you down all the time defense. They're going to create turnovers. They're going to be bend, don't break, and create turnovers. And that starts with Denard Wilson living up to his potential. So let me know what you think needs to go right for the Titans to hit their 11-game ceiling. Now we got to talk about the floor for the Titans and what could go wrong to get them there. Before we do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Look, you've heard me talk a lot about FanDuel because it's America's #1 sportsbook, but I got a little something different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account, a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. That $5 bet, Titans plus 4.5 against Chicago Bears week 1. If you think the Titans are going to win that game, plus 170, I think is the money line. Just saying, make sure that you visit FanDuel.com right now and download America's #1 sportsbook. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. I'm looking at the Titans ceiling and how they get there. I said 11 wins. Looking at the Titans floor and how they would get there. At the end of the show, I'll tell you where I think the Titans ultimately land and what goes right and what goes wrong out of all these things that we're talking about. But before I do want to thank you again for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. But I also want to let you guys know I got a promotion. The new Locked On NFL is here. They have split Locked On NFL into 2 shows every single day. And the first show of the day is hosted by none other than your boy, the madman, Tyler Rowland. Make sure that you guys check out Locked On NFL. I would appreciate your support over there. And then the second show of the day is hosted by none other than the barber himself, Tony Wiggins. So step into the barbershop with Tony for some real NFL talk in the afternoon. You get Locked On experts, NFL insight. I'm obviously going to have the hot opinions, and it's all going to be in under 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL. It's twice a day. Make me, the madman, Tyler Rowland, and the barber, Tony Wiggins, your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. I appreciate your guys' support for that going live this week. It's a great opportunity for me, and thank you all so much for tuning in and showing some love. But with that being said, also, the voice back to 90%. I'm cooking, okay? We're getting close. Tomorrow I'll be at 100, but I'm feeling good, all right? I'm feeling good. Thank you all so much for people who reached out and told me to get better too. I appreciate that. But I think the Titans' floor this year, as I've continued to say, is 7 wins. Now, if you go on FanDuel Sportsbook, the Titans over-under right now is 6.5 games. There is no way, there is no version of this season where the Titans win less than 6 games or 6 games or less. Like, there is no way. The Titans won 6 games last year. You're telling me that with all of the talent the Titans have added, that they'll lose more games than they lost last year? Not a chance. There's no way. So to me, the floor for the Titans is 7 wins. Now, if the Titans went 7-10, a lot of unsavory things would have to happen for them to get there, unfortunately. So what would that look like? Obviously, we started with Will Levis in the first segment, and we start with Will Levis now. If Will Levis isn't the guy, then the Titans are going to struggle. If he throws interceptions, struggles with his processing speed, runs around recklessly and gets himself injured. If Will Levis is a failure, the Titans will fail. It's that simple. Like, if you play the season out in a simulation 1,000 times, I don't know if there's a version of the team that is successful if Will Levis isn't. You know? So what? Mason Rudolph comes in and wins a couple of games. You know, if Will Levis is hurt how does that help the Titans going forward? Mason Rudolph isn't an answer. He's a good backup quarterback, a good backup. But if Levis isn't the guy, none of that really matters to me. Because, like, what are we winning for? What are we playing for? There is no future here. So the number one thing that could get the Titans to hit their floor is Will Levis struggling. But after that, again, like we talked about, the X factor on offense, J.C. Latham. If Latham is a complete bust, the Titans are in trouble. All right? Imagine if Latham were to be as bad as Dennis Daly or Andre Dillard or just barely better. That would be a disaster for the Titans. With what they have on the right side with NPF and then J.C. Latham at that level, it would be difficult for Will Levis to have any success. And it would be difficult for the Titans to run the ball consistently. It would look too much like it has the last 2 years. So if J.C. Latham is bad and Will Levis is bad, the Titans are in trouble. Also, I think there's a version of this season where the right side is such a disaster with Dylan Radins and Nicholas Petit-Ferrer that it, again, has the same effect that we just talked about with J.C. Latham. If this offensive line isn't suitable on the right side, it's going to be hard to hit the ceiling. And if they're a disaster on the right side, it'll make it a lot easier for the Titans to hit their floor, okay? Also, you got to mention injuries. As I talked about, the Titans are really trying to have a good wide receiver group. They've really put a lot of resources towards having a really nice group of wide receivers. But those guys are older players, and older players get hurt more than younger players. That's just what it is. Your body starts to break down as you get older. Tyler Boyd is so important. Tyler Boyd didn't play in joint practices against the Seahawks, and we heard about how bad it was. So if they're missing Tyler Boyd, it's going to be tough to keep the chains moving. If DeAndre Hopkins has a setback, if Calvin Ridley for some reason gets hurt, like, injuries can derail this season, but especially at wide receiver where they're older, and you got to think that injuries are more likely to happen to older players. But overall, as a team, we've seen injuries really impact the Titans were what was it, 7-2 or something like that a couple of years ago, and then the injuries just decimated the team, and then they lose all those games on the way to give Jacksonville the playoff spot. I mean, injuries can derail any team's season, but being a Titans fan, got a little PTSD on the injury thing, so obviously I got to mention that. Over on defense, though, I talked about how important it is that T'Vondre Sweat is good. I've talked about it since he got drafted, that they really, really need him to be an impact player. If he's not that good, if T'Vondre Sweat is not an impact player, if he can't hold up against double teams because he plays too high off the snap, if he's somebody that they can't use on third downs, like if T'Vondre Sweat isn't as good as he has to be as a early second-round pick, if he plays more like a fourth-round pick, they are in trouble because they don't have depth on the defensive line to withstand that. They won't be able to play in their nickel. They won't be able to keep guys off the linebackers and linebackers who aren't good block shedders, who are downhill guys. The way the Titans want to play on defense, they have to have T'Vondre Sweat be worth his draft pick. So obviously one of the first things that could happen on defense to get the Titans to hit their floor of 7 wins would be T'Vondre Sweat not being as good as we hoped he would be. Also, I think the middle of the field defense and pass coverage could be a disaster. Kenneth Murray, Ernest Jones, Jack Gibbons, none of the Titans' inside linebackers are good in pass coverage. None of them. And if Diggs is washed, if Amani Hooker gets hurt, which he has before, if Jamal Adams is washed as some from Seattle think he is, the Titans' middle of the field, they could have great corners on the outside, but the middle of the field defense Titans could get picked apart there. So that's a number one thing that I'm worried about on defense that could ultimately hurt them. And at the end of the day, I've talked about this the last 2 days. The edge rush. Harold Landry could have a good season. 10, 11 sacks. Good season. But Arden Key, and then you're going with Jalen Harrell, Ali Gay, Caleb Murphy. Like, if the Titans cannot get any consistent pass rush on the edge, it's going to be so hard to fix that totally with blitzing and not put yourself in a terrible position. So that's the first thing. And like I talked about, middle of the field defense, Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs have been added to this team and expected to play important roles. If both of them are washed, like some people think they are from Seattle, again, that middle of the field defense is just going to be tough to deal with. So that's what I think it would look like if the Titans hit their floor. I think their floor is 7 wins. But what do I think really happens and what goes right and what goes wrong? Before I tell you that, I do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you want at the prices you need, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Looked at the Titans ceiling as a team and how they get there. Looked at the Titans floor as a team and how they would get there. But as you guys know, most things in life, the answer is in the middle. So I'll tell you again where I think the Tennessee Titans ultimately land, what I think goes right, what I think goes wrong. Before I get into it, I do want to thank you again for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, tomorrow, crossover Thursday with Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears. It's football time, folks. Friday, game plan preview day. Cannot wait to tell you guys my keys to victory, my fantasy player of the game, my betting advice, what I'm looking for schematically. I mean, oh man, I'm so excited. But I also want to tell you guys to make your second listen Locked On NFL. I'm the new host, the lead host of Locked On NFL. So your support would definitely be appreciated over there. Check out Locked On NFL. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on your podcast apps. A couple clicks of a button and you really help me out. So not asking for too much, right? Either way, obviously in any season, not everything is going to go right and not everything is going to go wrong. So as I said a couple of days ago, my record prediction for the Titans this year is 9-8. I think they win 9 games. I think they push for the playoffs. I think they ultimately fall 1 or 2 spots away from actually making the playoffs. I think they would have to win 10 games in the AFC to make the playoffs. But I think 9-8 with Will Levis performing well would be a great outcome for the Titans. I know some of you guys are unreasonably optimistic. I know that I'm a bit of a pessimist in nature. I understand that. But some of you guys are outrageous with your level of optimism to the point where I would call it naivety. Like, it's naive to think the Titans could win 13 games. It's naive to think the Titans could win 12 games. This team was 6-11 last year. They made a bunch of improvements, 100% a bunch of improvements. And I think they will be improved. But some of you guys acting like they're going to get the number 1 seed in the AFC and stuff. I don't understand how you logically get your brain to go to that place. I cannot fathom how someone would look at this team and think they're going to win 13 games. I just don't understand, you know? And to me, they don't have to win 13 or 12 games or 11 games or 10 games for it to be a good season. This season is about Will Levis. Is he the answer? Is he not the answer? So if you find out that Will Levis is the answer and the Titans win 9 games and they miss the playoffs, that is still a great year for the Titans. Realistic expectations, everybody. So for me, I think Will Levis will be good. I think Will Levis will be good. I think we'll be leaving this season saying, okay, Will Levis is the answer. Now it's time to really push. Another offseason, another round of draft picks, another round of a ton of money in free agency. The next 2 seasons, 2025 and 2026, the Titans are looking to win a Super Bowl. Like that, if the Titans go there at the end of the year, if that is our mindset at the end of the year, such a major win for the Titans. And I do believe that Will Levis will answer that bell. I think Will Levis is the answer. I do think that J.C. Latham will struggle early. I think as a rookie offensive lineman, with how important he is to the team and how bad the right side could potentially be, I think J.C. Latham will struggle a little bit early, but I think by the end of the season, we'll be like, we got the franchise left tackle. We are locked in. So I think those things do go right. I also do think that Jeffrey Simmons goes nuts. I think Jeffrey Simmons cements himself, or at least puts himself with Chris Jones as the best interior defensive lineman in the NFL. I think he's going to get double-digit sacks this year. I think Jeffrey Simmons is about to go insane. I really do believe that. And I think that T'Vondre Sweat will be good as well. I do. I think I'm going to be wrong about that. I really do. Which, hey, he has the chance to prove me wrong. So far, every opportunity he's had since training camp started, he has proven me wrong. But what really matters is the games. But I do think T'Vondre Sweat will be good. And I think the Titans cornerbacks will be good. I think the Titans will be very good on the outsides. You will not want to attack the Titans on the outside. I think Denard Wilson will be good. And I think Denard Wilson will get some head coach buzz next offseason and ultimately come back for a second season with the Titans. But on the flip side, I think the Titans win 9 games, but I think the right side of the offensive line is still going to struggle. I think the Titans are going to go into next year with offensive tackle as a major need. I don't think Nicholas Petit-Ferrer is the answer. Dylan Radins is going to be a free agent after the year. So I think the entire right side of the offensive line is going to have to be replaced. And I think that is the difference, a big part of the difference between the 11 games and the 9 games. The Titans are just going to struggle in some games against teams with really good pass rushes. Okay. I also think that some of these wide receivers will miss some time. And the Titans will have some struggles in some games without Calvin Ridley, without Tyler Boyd, without DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins is already banged up. Now, he should be back for week 1, but, he's 32. I think the wide receivers will get banged up a little bit. And with that, I don't think that Treylon Burks is breaking out. So you would think, if this wide receiver, if that wide receiver misses a couple of weeks, you put Burks in there, he should be fine. But I think Burks is going to be a major letdown. So it's not going to be good enough for the Titans if they miss any of those wide receivers. And I think some of those wide receivers will inevitably miss a little bit of time. Will it be a catastrophic injury where they're out for the year? No, I do not think so. But a couple weeks here for a rolled ankle, couple weeks here for a sprained knee, couple weeks here for a bruised shoulder. I think that stuff will happen. And I think it'll hurt the Titans in a couple of matchups where they just aren't able to get that offensive consistency. I do worry about the edge. I think it's going to be a big issue. Arden Key is not good enough to be a starter. Jalen Harrell is a good player. I think he's going to help the team, but he's a 7th-round rookie. He is not going to be ready to be a starting edge rusher. So the Titans are going to struggle to get pressure off the edge, and that's going to make them have to blitz even more. And when they blitz more, they're going to be vulnerable in the middle of the field. And I got to tell you, I didn't really love the Jamal Adams signing. I don't think he's going to help the team much. Quandre Diggs is a good player, but I think he has lost a step. And I think the Titans are going to struggle all year long over the middle of the field in pass coverage. So without the edge rush, with the 2 safeties they got from Seattle being meh, and with the linebackers not being good in pass coverage, I think the Titans are just going to get attacked over the middle of the field. And there are going to be certain matchups where there's just not much they can do about it. And the corners on the outside locking down can only do so much. So to me, I think Levis is good. I think Latham gets off to a slow start, but is good by the end of the year. Simmons and Sweat are a great combo, and the corners are fantastic. But I do think the right side of the offensive line will struggle. There will be some injuries at wide receiver, and Burks will not answer the bell. And then the middle of the field defense and the edge rush for the Titans just won't be good enough for them to get to that ceiling. But ultimately, again, 9 wins, Levis looking good, Latham looking good, Sweat looking good. I think that would be a fantastic season for the Titans. So let me know what you think their ceiling is. Let me know what you think their floor is. Let me know where you think they land and why. Curious to see what you guys have to say about that. Tomorrow, it's Crossover Thursday. So excited. Football is here, folks. Can't wait to dive into it with you. Tighten up in the chat. Thumbs up on the video. That's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.